Namaste, everyone. I'm going to show you today how to safely practice Hanumanasana, which is a very challenging pose, one that symbolizes Hanuman taking his great leap across the ocean in the story of the Ramayana. And on the physical level, this pose is challenging because it is basically a full split with one leg straight out in front of you, stretching the hamstrings deeply, and one leg straight behind you, which stretches the psoas muscle, the hip flexor area, very deeply. And I'm going to show you a way that this can be accessible to everyone. There's different stages through which we can enter this pose. And so it can be available and safely accessible to everyone who wants to practice some version of it. So it's important when we practice this pose to first really warm up the body, do all the 6 movements of the spine, side bends, forward bends, back bends, and twists. So you get the body really warmed up and limbered up before we enter into this pose. It's also a really good idea to do some poses that stretch the hamstrings, as well as the pigeon pose, which stretches that front of the hip flexor and the psoas area on the back leg. And then once you're sufficiently warmed up, you can begin to play with accessing your expression of Hanumanasana. So let's do the most fun pose, Hanumanasana. And I wanted to just show you a picture here. Most of us cannot get into the full expression of this pose. So I just want to show you what it looks like. Here's somebody doing it. It's a full split with one leg extended all the way. Now, before you run away, don't worry, we're going to be totally supported in this and we'll find our own access to it. But this is symbolic of Hanuman taking his great leap. And I have another picture of a drawing of Hanuman doing it with his tail curled behind him. So this is the energy of the pose, just to show you. And what we're going to do to start is we're going to use props, so make sure you have a rolled up blanket or a bolster and your 2 blocks. If you even if some of you might even need more than 2 blocks or more than 1 blanket. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to take your blanket roll or bolster. If you have a blanket, just roll it up nice and tight, and you're going to put it underneath where your body is. So you're going to come into a low lunge, like so, with your blanket underneath your pelvis. And your blocks are going to be right beside you underneath your arms. I like to have the blocks up in the highest setting. You don't want your blocks out to the side or forward. You want them to support you right underneath your shoulders so that you're not using extra energy to try to reach the blocks. It's just arm bones stacked. That's the most efficient way to do this in terms of expending energy. So from here, straightening the front leg. So again, you have the blanket underneath you in case you need it. Now this might be as far as some of you will go. Maybe you can slide that foot a little bit forward and you're supporting yourself on the blocks here. So this is your Ardha Hanumanasana. And you might feel that lovely stretch in the back of the legs. You can slide your left knee. I've got my right leg stretched out in front of me. And you can, with the support of the blocks, draw your left knee back a little bit. And maybe this is as far as you'll go. And that's fine. You can just stay here for a few breaths and come out and come back into table. If it feels available to you, see if you can lower your pelvis down. So you're going to draw that foot a little more forward, and your back leg back. And just like pigeon, you want the knee to be straight down and the top of the foot to be straight down. Now, ideally, rather than leaning forward, you want to be able to have your shoulders stacked over your hips. And just pressing into the block a little bit takes the weight off of the pelvis and can allow you to do that. If you feel any pain here, you don't want to overstretch here, because then you can get an injury, a hamstring injury, where the hamstring attaches right to the sitting bone. So make sure you don't push this. If you need to have more blanket, add another blanket or another bolster or pillow underneath you. So the blocks, once you're down low, you can change the blocks to a lower setting. But this way, you're facing forward in that spirit of taking that great leap with commitment and with unwavering focus. Only if you feel the blanket supporting your pelvis, fully supporting, do I want you to lift your hands. Don't let your lower body be free unless you feel that you're not overstretching and you feel that support. So take as much height underneath your pelvis as you need to here. So you're going to feel a deep psoas stretch in the back leg and a deep hamstring stretch in the front leg. And taking that leap, hands can be in either that temple pose, hands at the heart, hands at prayer, third eye, reaching up, celebrating, woohoo, I'm doing it, I'm taking that leap, or hands supporting you on the blocks. Only if your hamstrings are really open here can you come down all the way. And if you come down all the way, you may still even want to be pressing into your blocks a little bit. To come out of the pose, press into the block to lift your upper body and draw that right foot in. Oh yeah, any wiggles and waggles that feel good here. Now it may be that you're much more stretched out on one side than another side. So, even if you could go all the way down on the right side with your right foot forward, don't assume that you can do it on the left side unless you know you can, unless you're really familiar with this pose. So we're going to start with the Ardha, half Hanumanasana, blocks under the shoulders. Heel stretching out. You can slide your right knee back and your left foot forward. And first find that upright quality. So you don't want to be leaning forward. You want to have the vertical line through your torso and your spine, and then ultimately a horizontal line through the legs, although we may not get all the way there. And just hold, pressing into the blocks, and breathe here. Maybe letting off as you press into the blocks a little more, and then slowly offering your pelvis down toward the earth. Take your time to breathe into this. Go nice and slow. And it's fine just to stay on your knee, under your hip, in that, basically that runner stretch. Ardha Hanumanasana, half Hanumanasana. And only when it feels comfortable, lowering the pelvis down, and maybe turning the blocks to a lower setting to come into full Hanumanasana with the pelvis supported. You're going to be like right under your sitting bone here on the left side. If it's comfortable, hands reach the sky. If you're really struggling to support yourself to be upright, maybe you need a little more height underneath your hips. Notice if that right thigh is externally rotated, and turn it in. And bring to mind wherever it is you're taking that giant leap, where you need that courage and strength and grace to fill you up to do whatever needs to be done to serve powerfully in the world. See, I can go almost all the way down, but I still need a little bit of support on the blocks. I don't want to release all the way. So I'm listening to my body, to where it's open this morning. Squaring the hips and squaring the shoulders to the front of the mat. Lift the corners of the mouth. Enjoy this. When you're ready to release, pressing into the blocks to draw that left foot back. And coming into table again. And find any movements that intuitively feel good here. How was that for you? Thank you, everyone. And may we bring those qualities that Hanuman embodies of courage and strength and deep devotion and service into our lives and all that we do, so that we may love courageously, serve joyfully, and remember God. Namaste.